Did you make this?
Yeah, I made that.
Can we have one? That's
Sure.
a cartoon thing.
Wait, I can get XP for those?
I'll give you like 25.
A few weeks ago, I attended Counterspell Silicon Valley, and I made customized 3D printed magnets with the Counterspell logo on them. And people were more impressed with my magnets than with my game. Some of the organizers wanted to know how I made these magnets. So this is a tutorial on how to make multicolor 3D prints on a 3D printer that doesn't have IDEX or an AMS system. In this case, when I'm making the Counterspell logo into a magnet, I have the logo as an image and I need to turn it into a 3D model. There are a few ways you could do this, but the easiest one I found is to just use an online converter. And because the image has colors, it also gives different layers for each of the different colors, which allows you to separate it later. Once the image has been turned into a 3D model, what you want to do is separate all of the different colors. This should be an easy part of the process because the converter will turn the image into different layers, with each layer corresponding to a different color. In the few cases where this could be more difficult, for example if you're printing a gradient or a lot of different colors, I think it really is just better to get a multicolor 3D printer for that. Once you've done that, you should have something like this. Notice that the blue layer completely covers parts of the red layer, so when you finish printing it, those parts are only going to appear blue, and the red layers will simply act as support for them. I recommend you have darker colors like blue on top of lighter colors like red, and in some cases, the converter will do that for you by making the darker colors be the layers on top, but in other cases it might be the other way around depending on the converter you use. In that case, you could just use Tinkercad to make a negative of the whole shape. The reason to do this is mainly because if you print very large layers, you're going to waste a lot of filament and it's not going to look like part of the magnet. It's going to look like a sculpture or something. So this way you can minimize the amount of layers you use, but I do recommend you use at least 2 layers to guarantee that the color below gets covered up. Export the entire model as one piece and then slice it as one piece. Export the G-code normally. Now make as many copies of the file as there are colored layers in your print. The method I use for creating these multicolor prints is by splitting them up into individual single color prints. There are ways you can do this by pausing a print in between, but personally I find this easier because my 3D printer has issues with pausing. First open your G-code file with not a slicer but a text editor. Now go into your slicer and find out when this specific layer needs to start and end. In this case, my layer only consists of one layer starting at 4.16 and ending at 4.32. Now find out which comment your slicer leaves for a Z height change. For example, mine says Z colon and then the Z height, and find the starting Z height of this layer. Delete everything between the start procedure of the G-code and the start of that layer. Now do the opposite, find the height that this layer ends at, and then delete everything between that and the end procedure of the G-code. What you've just done is you've isolated a single layer of color from your whole model. If you do this with every single layer where you need to swap colors, you should eventually end up with a bunch of separate G-code files that each are in charge of printing a single color. Make sure to name the files what order they will be printed in and what color they will be printed in so you remember that. Once all your files are edited, it's time to print them in order starting with the first file and first color. It should be pretty straightforward from here. It's simply swapping the color every single time the file changes, but I'm going to include some video that I captured of me making the Counterspell magnets. Okay, I've pretty much finished the base of these things, and once the base finishes, I'm going to swap the filament out for some red and print the next layer. Just did the first filament swap, it is red now. Now I'm going to print the red layer on top of these things. Okay, since I've kept the initial instructions in the G-code file, it's still going to level the bed, go along here, and then print a little string here. Then it should immediately get to printing the text on these things. And we are on to the next layer. I'm just about finishing up the red layer now. Once this finishes up, I'm going to swap the filament for the blue and print another blue layer on top of this. I'm running off the top print using the blue to cover some of the red because the original logo has some blue areas and red areas. Now I'm gonna be honest, these magnets did not turn out that well, but these were the first time I'd ever made multicolor magnets, and since then I have made some other ones that look much better. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorial on how to make multicolor 3D prints on a 3D printer that doesn't have IDEX or an AMS system. But anyway, I'm Alex Lee. This was my tutorial on multicolor 3D prints, and thanks for watching.
We'll meet again.